Thank you for joining us again on another episode of The Commend Journey. I'm your host, Michael Diamond. I am happy to have with us a fresh guest for this episode. And as is tradition on The Commend Journey, I'm going to let the guest introduce themselves and tell us a little bit more about themselves.
Well, hello, Michael. My name is Ray Coulombe. I'm the founder and managing director of Security Specifiers, which has been around since about 2010. So we're 12, 13 years into this. Prior to that, though, I had a number of experiences in the security industry. And even prior to that, I developed an initial interest in the topic of video, as I worked in TV-guided air-to-ground missiles in the Air Force. After a few corporate stops, I decided that I really wanted to enter the entrepreneurial world. And I did that by joining a fledgling security company in the early 80s called National Guardian. And it was my very first taste of security. We moved from that into an adjacent venture, a small fiber optic company that eventually led to the introduction of a family of fiber optic interfaces for security, primarily video and access control. And from that point, I had a succession of early companies and startup company experiences, the most significant of which probably was Cypix Networks, which we started in the early 2000s. It was acquired by Cisco as their first venture in security. And from Cisco, I learned a lot more about networking and actually picked up a degree in information technology. And there was an element of that, databases, that kind of captivated me. And I thought that it might be a very interesting idea to take the idea of a database, which our databases are used at access control and a variety of different things within security already, but to take the idea of a database and to apply it to the security consulting community. And so Specifiers was born out of an idea, really initially to be an online database subscription-based service to allow manufacturers primarily to connect with security consultants. In this industry, security consultants are one of the most misunderstood quarters for a variety of reasons. Number one, they tend not to be terrific marketers. Many of those are buried in engineering firms doing great work, but not terribly visible to the outside. And many of these people do not attend trade shows or different venues where people can get to know them. But they matter. I estimate there are probably 3,000 or so worldwide. And on balance, the average security consultant influences about $3 million worth of product sales annually. So as a group, it's a tremendous purchasing influence that wasn't very well understood by the market at large. A few manufacturers did, but most manufacturers did not. So Security Specifiers was really my attempt to make the whole community more visible, to have a database of those people who actually specify security systems, and then to work with selected manufacturers to connect them with these consultants, educating both sides along the way, the manufacturers and how to effectively engage with consultants, and consultants to really get a better understanding of the product width and depth that the manufacturers were offering. Mm-hmm. And that has evolved since its initiation. And on top of that, in 2017, we layered a consultant security technical symposium, which is an event, it's not a trade show, but it's an educational event for the consulting community that our manufacturer sponsors are able to participate in with the intention of not only learning, but also getting to know the consultants on an up-close and personal basis. So we just finished our 5th consult event this past fall. Looking forward to one later this year in Louisville, Kentucky. And we have roughly 4 dozen manufacturer sponsors, one of which is Commend.
That's right.
So that's what I'm doing full time now. We are enhancing specifiers. We're running consult and frankly having more fun right now than I have in the previous 40 years in this industry. 40 years, but that makes me sound old, doesn't it?
No, not at all. It makes you sound experienced, right? That's the way we like to look at it here. So it's interesting you bring up the consultant portion of this. So I guess I would lead you with this question, which is, how are those security consultants adapting to the changing technology landscape in today's market?
This is a case where I can't give you an answer for the entire community. A lot of security consultants are approaching retirement. They've been around a while. And there are a number who have retired over the last 10 years. And I think that part of the reason for those retirements has been the evolution of technology. So networking technology was a major event in the industry. For somebody who is approaching retirement to learn a brand new technology, along with its terminology and how it works and how you interface with it and so forth, can be a challenge. So now we have sort of the next wave of people coming through. I think some adapt very, very well. Younger consultants, middle-aged consultants, because they've grown up with more technology, they adapt better.
Mm-hmm.
The more senior people, it really comes down, I think, to their technical ability and to their intellectual curiosity. So some are doing a really, really good job. Some are relying upon other people in their firm to sort of technology backfill them. And others are, and I wouldn't say it's a large number, but others are riding it out to retirement. And you've got a number of consultants who also serve as expert witnesses and do other things. And maybe I'm just surmising more of their activities might be taken up with the non-technical matters than really trying to understand the technology. I think on balance, however, they're doing a pretty good job. They have to. If they're going to survive and be successful with their clients, they really need to be up to snuff on technical solutions. And it's to the manufacturer's advantage to make sure the consultants are up to snuff so they can do a proper job specifying their products.
Mm-hmm.
So
How can specifiers and salespeople foster secure solutions that promote good cybersecurity practices? As we know, cyber is an all-encompassing and continuing to develop issue within our industry. As every single new layer of technology connects to it and continues to grow in that space, how do those consultants and specifiers get their customers with manufacturers sort of linked into the right fit?
I hear two questions embedded in that. One's a general technology question, and then you ask specifically about cyber. I would say that as little as 5 or 6 years ago, I think many in the security consulting community thought that cyber was an IT problem.
Hmm.
The IT department will take care of it. That's not something I need to worry about. It didn't get as much airtime as it should have. At our first console conference, I think we really aired that. I think we convinced people that, in fact, they very well could have a cyber liability. If they specified product that was inherently insecure, or accepted contractors, perhaps, that didn't have the cyber qualifications, there's potential liability. And in a massive breach, anybody remotely associated with that situation is a possible target of a lawsuit.
Mm.
So as I think people began to realize that they might have liability, as they began to understand that many products that were getting specified then might have cyber holes in them, they began to take it more seriously. However, I have to say that even today, many people rely on the integrators. I'm going to specify this. It's up to the manufacturers to build secure product. It's up to integrators to install it properly. I've done my part. But I think that there's a way to go on the consultant side to help ensure that the products they specify are truly cyber secured, to comfort themselves with or become comfortable with the cyber posture, the software development procedures, all those things that manufacturers should be doing to keep their products secure. And I think that also that more and more they'll be holding the integrators' feet to the fire to have people on staff who can really lock down a network and the devices on that network We worked with the Security Industry Association, and we had some good input from the consultant community on actually developing a certification called the Security Industry Cyber Certification, the SICC, which is designed to provide a certification, thereby implying a certain level of qualification in the area of cyber, specifically for security techs, electronic and physical security techs, that is. To date, prior to that certification, nothing really existed that was targeted towards the security technician. It was all about the IT technician, the data technician, people from another world. Security techs in our business don't need to understand everything that a Cisco network tech has to understand, but they need to know how to lock down a camera, the basics of switching and routing, and all of that, so that when they go in and configure their equipment, it's configured properly, and that they have an intelligent conversation with their opposite number on the IT side to make sure that everything is interfacing properly. So in a project specification, when a consultant specifies and lists integrator qualifications, in my opinion, they really should be listing the type of certifications or knowledge that that security tech has that's going to install that system so that's as cyber secure as it can be. So again, manufacturer with responsibility to produce secure products, integrators to lock it down, but yet consultants sort of supervising and setting the table to make sure that process actually happens.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one of the things that we at Commend have concentrated on in the past and then are continuing to the future here is look to make sure that the integrators that we work with retain that Commendian knowledge, as we call it. I think it's really easy for, as somebody who worked in the integration field beforehand, with a lot of different manufacturers, you could get certified on something and then either because of sales or the course of business, not touch it for 18 months or more. And it's really important, we feel, to be up to date on education, to understand that product lines change. And there is a part for the integrator to hold on, a piece of knowledge they need to have. Like you say, they don't need to know everything about the internals of, Cisco routing tables and how to configure them, but they need to understand the parts that affect what they do, to ask the questions that they need to have to complete the job on their side.
That is very, very true. And we're not there yet, Michael. As one who's taught basic networking and some cyber to technicians, there are a lot of very sharp security techs out there. But what I've found in the process of teaching those that I did was that there were gaps in their knowledge, but that they can pick it up very quickly with just some dedication and some intelligent study.
So in turn, how do you see the role then of a manufacturer, say like Commend, when it comes to providing not only certified equipment, but obviously fostering that more, the complete project outline?
I think it starts with the product development. And in product development, so much of what's produced today involves embedded software. So secure software development, which is having the right people, having the right procedures, having the testing capability to really bang on that product to see if it can be hacked, to employ third-party testing. So it's the process and hardware selection, design, and testing that can help validate that. So that's product. But they also, you mentioned Commend has certified integrators, making sure those certification requirements address what needs to be addressed from, among other things, cyber. And I think there should be a periodic recertification.
Yeah.
And the other thing that goes with that is you may have some people from an integrator who are certified, and when that integrator shows his credentials to a security consultant to get accepted on the job, well, are those people who are certified actually going to be the people who do the work? So from a manufacturer standpoint, the manufacturer, if there's cyber elements to it, for those elements should insist that whatever integrator person or technician touches that product has the requisite knowledge to be able to do that intelligently. And I don't think that happens nearly as often as it should.
No, I think that if you've been part of a lot of projects in the field, and I have no doubt that you have, I've been part of more than a handful of my own. I think that there's that old adage that not the 90% of the job is done with 10% of the time left, right? Everything sort of squeezes together into one, wire molded shape because of a lot of factors in the industry. And I think that there are integrators and even customers who press on those integrators. Hey, we got to have it done. We got to have occupancy. We have to have, this timeline met. And so a lot of that goes into proper planning, but every job has variance. Every project is going to have some things that change along the way. And it's that agile integrator and also agile manufacturer that can help smooth those bumps out as they come.
There's nothing like a good overall project manager to keep the trades on track, working with the contractors, the subcontractors, so that the integrator doesn't have just a minimal amount of time to do a job that requires more time than what he was given. So good project management is vital, I think, to the success of a project.
Absolutely. All right. So I want to end on a happy note. If you look 5 years out from now in the industry, where do you see us growing to?
Specifically with audio, since this is sponsored by Commend, roughly 4 years ago, we did a keynote speech at Consult by Professor Rita Singh from Carnegie Mellon University. And Dr. Singh was engaged by the government to do some research on being able to identify people by their voice. But you say, okay, that's not so hard. But she would do it with milliseconds of voice tracks. And from that voice, she could determine several dozen different characteristics of that person pretty accurately. Age, race, physical setting, and environment, things that you couldn't believe. This is all a result of her analyzing phony distress calls where people would pretend to be out in a boat somewhere saying, Mayday, Mayday, but it sounded like, and she was able to analyze little snippets of, tiny snippets of voice to determine that person was not in a boat. They were in a building. There's a man, probably about 35, 40 years old. And when they finally caught the person that did it, she had it nailed down to a T. It was incredible. She could also determine with pretty good accuracy if someone had Parkinson's disease, their age by the change in the voice print that typically happens over time. But it's one thing to listen to a conversation and say, well, that's Michael Diamond or that's Ray Coulombe. But to have milliseconds of just a sliver of a voice and make those determinations is incredible. And so that work continues on. And so I think that computer intelligence, computer and automated investigation in the audio area, and that's going to be turbocharged by artificial intelligence, is going to be very, very significant in the audio area. I think we're just now seeing audio really coming to its own as a sensor, in addition to other sensors like video cameras that are out there in the market. Gunshot detection is probably the greatest example of that.
Sure.
You've got glass break and scream detection and change in pitch and things like that. But I think it's going to get more granular, more technical, and more exciting. Another piece of that is what we're hearing in the news now is people are recreating voices from artificial intelligence, or using artificial intelligence to where you might look at a video on one of the social media platforms and you hear some statement made by that person speaking, but it's really not that person. It was artificially constructed audio using technical tools. So there have to be tools to identify that and defeat that so that the voice that's being used for whatever purpose has been validated to be true and not something that was artificially constructed. So AI is going to be used for some, maybe not in all cases nefarious, but for misleading purposes. But it can also be used for some good and as an antidote to some of the stuff happening on the other side. And I think as we go forward in security, AI is going to be a recurring theme. Cyber is going to be a continuous game of cat and mouse, whack-a-mole, as we go back and forth. Cloud services are going to continue. Identity is going to, continue to grow as a topic. And products like the Commend products with audio and audio communication sort of fit right into that scheme of things. I think we're going to have a continuing evolution. The security industry has not been shy about embracing technology, but they do tend to lag both the consumer and the IT markets by a little bit. I don't see that really changing. But the technology that we see in those markets or sectors of our economy, will make their way into security.
Fantastic answer and a fantastic time. So I want to thank you for your time, Ray. I appreciate it. And appreciate you coming on the Commend Journey podcast.